Where the world remains is the choke point that controls over 22 million barrels per day of oil and product exports remain closed by our definition. A few ships here, they're trickling through, doesn't satisfy our definition of being open. What we have now, we've subscribed to a lot of different platforms, one of which is OilX, which uses satellites to try to track production in real time, measuring OPEC production in real time down 10.6 million barrels per day. That will continue to get worse as countries therein, whether it's UAE or Saudi or Iraq, run out of storage capabilities and they have to shut in production. And so the world is losing by far the most amount of oil ever in history. Combining on that as well, we know that LNG, 20% of the flows are encumbered as well. It's going to have a huge impact on power pricing around the world, on fertilizer production, on food production, etc. Set that aside. I'm going to focus exclusively on oil. There are such amazing parallels between today and COVID. It's shocking to me. COVID, we know, is the biggest demand shock in history. Demand fell as much as 27 million barrels per day at the worst of the worst, averaging down, let's say, 12, 14 million barrels per day. Fast forward to now, we have the biggest supply shock in history with flows down 15, 16 million barrels per day, demand up, supply production down about 11 million barrels per day, all triangulating around the same time. We had the biggest drop in OPEC exports in history in March of this year. The prior one was March 2020. April coming in as well. We look at the situation getting worse. And so we're living through the worst case possible scenario. The challenge is that the lag time, and during COVID, the magnitude of what happened, there was the magnitude and the velocity happened so quickly. It's human nature not to be able to see what should be abundantly obvious. That is happening today in the energy markets, even though with every hour, we're getting more and more clues. Where we are heading is energy scarcity, where irrespective of price, certain areas of the world and certain products therein, there will be no availability. And so what it's going to lead to, it must lead to, is a oil price high enough to kill demand. Governments are trying. Okay, we've had an SPR release announced, the biggest on record. It amounts to about 3 million barrels per day. It's a rounding error relative to the global problems. We now have governments. So we had the Malaysian government. We have Asian governments. Malaysia, I think it's as of April 15th, ordering people to work from home. Again, pretty strong parallels between COVID. Problem there is supply shocks are very difficult to fix because there's a lag effect. There was a good map put out on Twitter of JP Morgan showing what areas of the world where they're getting those last cargoes that were able to meaningfully exit the strait, carrying jet fuel, carrying gasoline, different oil products, etc. And so we're now in the crunch time where the last of those ships have arrived. And this is when the, starts to hit the fan, when we're now running out of product, out of gasoline, out of jet fuel. And that is when we had said that you would see a bridging between the paper market and the physical market, where you must get a price response to kill demand. We've talked about in the past where historically that is when the oil burden on global GDP reaches 5.5%. That's roughly $177 per barrel. That's not what we want, but that's the reality of the situation. Because the lag time, let's think about, okay, let's assume last night had a different ending. Let's assume that there is some negotiation of some semblance, the strait is opened up, etc. What does the world look like then? What we need is a reshuffling of all of the oil tankers that have left, that are now carrying some products at least. They now have to sail back to the strait. From Asia to the strait, it's roughly on average a 20-day sail time. You need to fill up, assuming you've got the production, and I'll touch on that in a second, to fill the tanker up. And then you've got another 20 days to get back to your end destination point. So that's 40 days. Most people anticipate it'll take at least 2 months for the strait to fully normalize. And there's a lot of concern about the long-term production impact from this. When you shut in production to this magnitude, where Iraq, I think shut-ins now are approximating 3.5 million barrels per day, Other areas, it's not as well known officially. When you shut in that level of production, especially in certain types of these fields, you really risk long-term production formation damages and loss of long-term productive capacity, and that's the market's not even there yet. And so, even when the strait opens up, even when you've got the tankers awaiting, it's going to take time to ramp up that production. Kuwait, which is a very sophisticated state oil company, said that it will take 3 to 4 months to fully ramp up production. So what of Iraq? So there's this lag effect. And so the energy crisis that we're in now will have longevity, meaning a very, very high oil price, I think, in at least lasting for the next several months. What I think energy investors really should focus on then is, well, let's focus on the day after. What does the world look like when the strait is eventually, fully normalized? Let's just go there. What does the world look like? We think that there will be an enduring political risk premium in the oil price of at least $10 to $20 per barrel. There will be a renewed focus on the value of strategic barrels in countries in politically safe jurisdictions with enough egress, i.e. Canada. The value of those reserves are going to go up a lot. And there's going to be, when we came into this year again, there was this expectation, consensus was, what we coined was the most anticipated oil supply glut in history. Well, that's obviously officially dead. With the magnitude of how much production is down, it's measured that we're going to lose at least 900 million barrels of Middle Eastern production. And so we're going to go from what was supposed to be all-time high oil inventories to potentially all-time low oil inventories. That's resetting the base. And so the new normal is going to look a lot different than what we thought the world was going to look like, or what consensus thought the world was going to look like a few months from now. And so you're resetting the base for the oil price given fundamentals with inventories, and then you have to tack on $10 to $20 onto that. We also wouldn't be surprised to see more and more countries building their own SPRs. We see strategic hoarding now. You have export bans from certain countries. China export bans to Australia and New Zealand, bit of an issue. So what do you see? Again, going back to COVID, you have governments saying, take public transit, work from home, warning. Even the UK Prime Minister was warning about tough times ahead. That's the tip of the spear. So let this be a warning. Let this be, at least it's my own personal view and prediction. There are some very, very challenging days ahead that have profound macro implications from that. I don't want to get out of my lane. I'm an energy guy. And so this is what we see. A world where for the first time in history, pockets of the world would be facing energy shortages, almost irrespective of price, married with an oil price that has to go to a point that kills demand destruction. And that's not what we want. That's what I think is reasonably to be expected unless things dramatically change. But again, if things so-called normalize, you've got this multi-month lag effect.
Charter rates are ridiculous right now. And the diesel fuel and gas that they usually get from South Korea, from Japan, from India, from other places, guess what? It's not there, because the oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz isn't there because it's already hit there. And those refineries have decreased volume, increased prices. You're about to feel the shock. If you think you've felt the shock yet, you haven't yet. It's about to happen. Understand, the Trump administration has done everything they can to keep prices down. They've released the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. They have waived the Jones Act. They have basically done everything they can to prioritize shipments. They have desanctioned Russian and Iranian fuel to get it into refineries in East Asia. But that is going to not be enough when at least 10 to 12 million barrels per day is taken out of the system when the Strait of Hormuz is shut, out of a system of 103 million barrels per day. That is going to be the problem. You're going to feel the shock. But it's not just that. So our buddies over at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development have updated their publication on Strait of Hormuz disruptions as of April 1st, growth and financial implications. So I want to just highlight a couple of key charts for you. Here is the tracking of vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Average during February was 129 ships. During March, 6. That's it. You've had 6 ships going through on average through March. That's basically a day and a half worth of traffic that has gone through the entire month, a drop of 95%. This chart shows you the shock to global trade. It's expected to slow down from 4.7% to 2.5 to 1.5%. Why is that? Very simply, fuel costs. Fuel costs have skyrocketed and they remain elevated. This is the price for oil around the world, but what it's not showing you here is the price for bunker fuel, the price we pay to fuel a ship. That has doubled and in some cases tripled. The cost to move oil around the world has increased. You can see the jump here in terms of the index, assuming 27 February to be your starting point for your index. Everything here has jumped. Clean products is over double, and dirty fuel, what we're talking about here being oil, crude oil, it's up almost double. Now, when oil prices rise, the cost of living rises. You can see there the chart on the left showing oil prices, and here you see the inflation rates in both developing and developed countries. And you can see that spike that occurs when this happens. We can expect to start seeing that uptick in inflation in both developing and developed countries next. So when you have rising geopolitical risk, that fuels global uncertainty. We saw it in 2022 when Russia invades Ukraine. We're seeing it right now with the military conflict between the United States, Israel, and Iran. So they highlight 4 issues here. 1, consider a policy mix to stabilize price levels as inflation pressures rise. 2nd, implement measures to contain transmission of systematic risk across energy trade and finances. 3rd, enable rapid access to external financing. There's a big issue about financing drying up. They talk about it in the report. I'll have a link to the full report. You can take a look at it. And then finally, empower development banks to provide emergency loans when creditors may need to suspend debt services. This is the makings of not just an oil crisis, but a financial crisis. Again, what happened in 2020 with the COVID and the supply chain crisis, what happened in 2008 with the mortgage crisis, this could be substantial. I don't think it's right for the United States to sit there and say we had no part in this, because we did. We decided to take military action against Iran. I'm not saying Iran did not deserve military action against it. They've done horrendous things since 1979. There's no question about that. I've had friends who were in Afghanistan and Iraq and dealt with the issues of Iran. But this is a global issue, and we need to focus on a global crisis. Everybody needs to take neat note of this. We need to get the strait open, or else we're going to see cost of living increase across the board. That's going to mean more expensive fuel, more expensive food. That means people are going to starve. That means people are going to suffer. This is going to be a global crisis. It is not just US, Israel, Iran, and the Persian Gulf states. This is global, and we need to understand that. I fault the US for not taking more measures to ensure the safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. This plan exists. I know it exists. I've seen the plan. The plan exists. It's there. But they focused on the mission of decapitating the Iranian government and degrading the Iranian military. That's not the military's choice. That's the government's choice. That's the administration's choice. That's everybody's choice to do this. They should have taken actions to ensure that the Strait of Hormuz is open within days or weeks, not months. We're in months now. We're in the 2nd month. This is a severe crisis. The focus has got to be in reopening the Strait of Hormuz and ensuring the flow. Because again, it's not just oil. It's liquefied natural gas. It's liquefied petroleum gas. It's helium. You want to start talking about chips and making computers? That's going to be a big issue. It's car carriers stuck behind the Strait of Hormuz. It's oil tankers stuck behind the Strait of Hormuz. It's containers. It's sulfur. It's fertilizer, urea, MAP, DAP. You name it. There's a ton of resources that are in jeopardy here, not the least of which we're diverting ships over longer distances. We have fewer ships than we did before. That means we're stretching out supply lines. This gets worse before it gets better. If today, Bibi Netanyahu, President Trump, and whoever the head of Iran happens to be right now, get together, hug, kiss, make up, I don't know, peace in the Middle East, we're still going to feel it because it's going to take weeks, months to fix this because the disruption is placed. We saw it with Ever Given in the Suez. When Ever Given in the Suez went sideways, 6 days, it took at least 6 weeks to straighten that out. It's going to take longer. We've had the Strait of Hormuz shut for over 30 days. This is going to take 30 weeks. We're talking about going into 2027 maybe before we straighten this out. That's how severe this economic problem is. Not trying to sound alarmist, trying to sound realist. I don't sound false alarms. If you watch me over the past 5 years, I don't, I don't run around hair on fire. I don't have the hair to spare for that. I don't do that. I'm trying to give you the accurate depiction of what's happening. And if you're worried about gas prices, get ready because they're going to go up again. They're not going to stay where they're at because even though we produce a lot of our own oil and we refine a lot of it, we are not independent. We're not. Understand how the system works. And when we start seeing those shortages hit, when we start seeing refineries and lack of a product hit Australia, East Asia, over in Europe, that is going to cause problems. That's going to cause problems. I don't expect to see shortages at the gas station. I don't think you're going to run there and see the gas stations closed, but you're going to see higher prices. That's what you're going to see. And when you have higher fuel prices, that's inflation. And when you have inflation, that's higher costs. That means your spending dollar and whatever currency you happen to have is going to be worth less. That's what happens when you mess with global shipping. And that's what happened here is nobody in the back of that room when they were planning this war raised their hand, or maybe they did, but no one listened to him and sat there and said, sir, I think we need to think about the Strait of Hormuz. Got a plan right here how to open the Strait of Hormuz. We'll worry about that later. That's what happens with logistics every time, all the time. We don't worry about it. We don't worry about supply chain till the supply chain breaks.